Good morning. It is Saturday, June the 4th. It's about 8:50 a.m. This is Shay Gibson, Weather Flow and Wind Alert, bringing you a tropics update as we continue to watch an area down near the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico slowly start to organize. Now, the National Hurricane Center has been steadily increasing the chances. Now at 8 o'clock a.m., it has a 70% chance next 48 hours and 80% chance next 5 days. So if we look at the GRE on radar, we see that the system does not look very organized right now. There's a little bit of a low pressure coming together down here just to the east of the Yucatan. It looks like there's some banding starting to occur right along the eastern and northern side of this. So it looks like some convection is starting to try to wrap around this system, as there's been a pulse in easterly trades about 20 to 28 knots right now, kicking more air into the system, more moist air. Back here it's more relaxed, but right in this vicinity is where the gradient's pinched, so this air is rushing into this area right now, and it's going to start trying to develop a closed low. This system will start to lift to the north-northwest across the peninsula, and ultimately it will head to the north and then north-northeast across Florida. The reason being is because of an upper trough, an upper low in southern Texas, really pulling down across the Gulf of Mexico right now. This actually may limit its ability to strengthen into tropical storm status. If it does, it would be Colin. Not entirely sure yet, but we know that this upper trough will be affecting its western side and limiting its strength based on vertical stack limiting of this storm. So even here in the Gulf of Mexico, the deepening convection that would be needed to acquire tropical storm status may be limited on the western side because of that upper trough. And if we look at the earth.nullschool.net, we get a better idea of that right now, where this upper trough is right about here. We see this upper shear at the 250 millibars, very high up, 36,000 feet, where the cloud tops may rise up to a certain level where they acquire thunderstorm cumulonimbus status, and then they get ripped off the top of the storm. So any deep convection is not allowed to sustain for any period of time because of this shearing factor. Now, as we go into time, if we look into tomorrow, we see that the eastern side of this upper trough starts to kind of fade back to the west just a little bit, and even into Monday, we see that this trough really kind of creates an avenue for the system right about here. So the upper shear environment looks a little bit more relaxed right down the center of the path. This is why we think the system will be lifted up to the north and to the northeast eventually. But this eastern side is what we're really going to be watching on this system, as heavy rainfalls, downpours, probably some squall lines, maybe waterspouts and tornadic activity are going to be associated with, because most of the convection of the system is going to be coming off of the east side. This is where the convective status is going to be increased and where it could gain potential tropical storm status as it makes landfall across Florida. So fairly certain that it's going to be cutting across Florida at this point. The confidence is very high. If you look at the rainfall amounts, the WPC had this at about 7 or 8 inches yesterday for the Tampa Bay area. However, I think once it picks up speed and cuts across Florida faster, the rainfall totals will go down. This is maybe one of the reasons why they brought the levels down to begin with. And also the eastern side is still something to watch over here just to the south and east of Tampa Bay, as the rainfall amounts create sort of a monsoonal trough or an upper atmospheric river across this entire area, its entire track. So even the Carolinas are going to need to be watching this for rains. I don't think it's going to be much of a wind maker for the Carolinas. If it does come nearby, it would be more of a rip current threat and more of a rain threat. So maybe with some thunderstorms. So we'll have to keep an eye on the Carolinas for the system if it takes a more northeasterly track and skirts the coastline before heading out into the Atlantic. Then all eyes will be on it then as it gets back over water in the Atlantic Ocean. Otherwise, if it heads off to the northeast and continues that track, we won't have to worry so much about it. So let's take a look at the sea surface temperatures for the Gulf of Mexico. If we run the loop back from May 14th, we see how much the waters have increased. Even the loop current here just to the west of Cuba, north of Yucatan Peninsula, that has warmed significantly. So we're in the mid 80s, about 85, 86 degrees. This system is going to be moving over that warmer water, so that's going to be a fueling mechanism for some of that convective activity that should be wrapping around the center. Now, if you look at the latest tracks, most models are in agreement for this general direction of northeast movement. So over the next 72 hours, 48 to 72 hours, most models are pretty confident that the system is going to take these tracks. Now, if we look at the GFS model for the area, for this part of the region anyways, we see this low cutting across the peninsula and then heading to the north in time, and then that's where it emerges over the Gulf of Mexico and then cuts across Florida. Now right here, is going to be the crucial point, because this rainfall is going to be there's going to be quite a bit of rainfall associated with the system, and that's the primary threat is going to be that the winds may be elevated along that eastern side as well. Whether or not it requires tropical storm status at this point, we don't know, but once it moves over land, it's likely not to, until it emerges back over the Atlantic, over the Gulf Stream, where it could acquire tropical storm status then, if anything. But here's the Euro model, and we'll run this one. This is 24 hours, and then we go to 48 hours, lifting across the Gulf of Mexico. This one brings a little bit further north into Florida before hooking out to the northeast, so we'll have to watch that as well. Excuse me. Intensity guidance. We do have some of these models are bringing this storm up to about 55 knots, so it's not entirely out of the question. We have to look at everything. We have to look at the lower and the upper. So we have the medium here. Right at tropical storm status is where most of the models are in agreement for. So that would be over the next 48 to 72 hours when that does occur. And if we look back at Datascope for the Tampa Bay area, I want to pick Tampa Bay because that seems like a kind of a hitting ground for this system, and look at Egmont Channel as one of the points of reference for winds. And I'm going to zoom in on this screen just a little bit here and talk about it. So here's our modeling down here, the forecast tables. Now the GFS has winds coming up to 27 to 28 knots on Monday around 2 a.m. So I would say Sunday evening into Monday night, conditions start to worsen and then deteriorate all the way into the day Monday and into Monday night and even into Tuesday morning as the system pulls away. So most of this activity is going to be at nighttime for Tampa Bay, it looks like. Now GFS is showing gusts up to 37, 38 knots. These numbers could climb, but if we look at the NAM-12, we see that there's a little bit more agreement from a little bit higher resolution models here. So GFS is very coarse and low resolution at 0.5 degree. The NAM-12 brings it up in resolution. As time goes on, the higher resolution models, the NAM-5K and the HRR3K, will start picking up on the system as far as rainfall goes and for wind totals. So it's a little far out to tell what these winds are going to do. Generally, with these kind of systems, you see a swathing of wind forecasting in these medium to high or medium to low resolution models. But really, what happens is you get a lot of ups and downs and inconsistency in the wind. You get surges during these squall lines, and then you get maybe moderate winds as sustained in between the banding of these storms. So we can't really rely on anything just yet for the modeling, and you really have to sort of take it day to day with these systems. The HRR3K is really good for precipitation, and for this kind of system, either the GFS or the NAM-5K are probably going to be the better models to look at for the eastern side of the system. That's not definite either. We may have the WRF model, the WRF model, may come in very handy as well. That's a high resolution 5-kilometer model there. So that's going to do it for the tropical update. And if anything significant changes between now and tonight, I'll come back on. And maybe on tonight, if not tomorrow morning, for another tropical update to see where the system is and what it's doing. But until then, take care and thanks for watching.